Welcome to the Globetrottin ADs. This podcast is for you, athletic directors, activity coordinators, coaches, and program associates based in international schools around the world. The Globetrottin ADs is proudly hosted by Nick DeForest from the American International School Vienna and Matt Fleming from the American International School of Budapest. Here they are now, Nick and Matt and the Globetrottin ADs.
All right, everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Globetrottin ADs, and welcome for me once again from the United States. I'm working remotely still, but I'll be back in Europe in about a week or so, but glad to be here for this week's episode. We're continuing on with an alumni spotlight show. We have a guest today. We've been fortunate to have a few of these guests on our show in the past, where we've had students who either previous students of our own or from other schools, other international schools, to share their stories and their experiences of being in international school and then coming out with that experience into the real world of grown-up life. So we're happy to have Anna Chanduvi, another success story, who's an alumni of the American International School of Vienna. So we're really happy to have her here today. So before we start our talks with Anna, I'm going to throw it over to Nick. How are we doing in Vienna, Nick?
Yes, really good, and really excited to have Anna with us. As you mentioned, she was a student at AIS Vienna, and then after that, an intern, right, in our office. So unfortunately, we're not sitting in the same room talking, but sometime soon, I hope. So welcome, and yeah, tell the audience a little bit more about yourself, please.
Yes, and thank you guys so much for having me on. It's really great to kind of be back. We're back virtually, but AIS and my athletics career has always had such an important impact on me as a person and shaping my values. So it's really nice to kind of come back and speak about this. But yeah, a bit about me. Since leaving high school, I've done various internships in the sports business side of things. I've always been very interested in sports. I was one of those students that if I didn't feel passion for something, I found it very difficult to put 110% into a specific subject matter. And for me, sports just had that appeal and that drive. And that's when I felt excited about coming to school. And I continued doing PE in 11th and 12th grade, which was quite unusual at the time, because you're usually with like 9th and 10th graders, but I just really loved being involved in sports. So I just knew right away that I wanted to work in the business side of sports. And so I pursued a sports management degree in England. And once I graduated university, I did an internship at the NBA, where I worked in sports media and broadcasting. So selling NBA TV rights essentially to broadcasters. That is the license for NBA games. I mean, to those of you that aren't familiar with the broadcast rights space, it can get quite complicated, but it's a fun industry to work in, and you learn a lot about sports right off the bat. So I did that internship, and then I went and worked for a broadcaster called beIN Sports for a couple of years, which was quite a global role. And I got to travel to Doha, Singapore, Miami, Istanbul. It was very, very surreal. I got to go to the Olympic Games, and it was kind of thrown into the deep waters and trying to learn how to swim. But it was a very fun experience nonetheless, working on the broadcast side of things. And then after a couple of years there, I joined Facebook. So I've been at Facebook for 2.5 years now. And I lead our sports media partnerships team across Europe, Middle East, and Africa, which basically means that I work with broadcasters, all types of broadcasters, from digital to traditional, all types of business models. And I help them use Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Messenger to drive their business goals and objectives forward.
Wow, really cool. I didn't realize all the travel and all that. So that's pretty exciting. So and you're happy with the, the way the career went, from the beIN Sports to Facebook? So a good stepping stone?
Yeah, it kind of all happened very naturally. One of the things that I learned really fast is when I entered the career space or the job market is opportunities are thrown at you, and you just have to go for them, whether whether you know what you're getting yourself into or not. Sometimes you might feel like you don't have all the answers, and you can be quite intimidating, for me, especially going from broadcasting, so sports, traditional sports television, where I was working on content strategy. So that was very much sitting and looking at, okay, what sports do we want for our channels, and how do we go and buy those sports from leagues? So it was very much looking at fan behavior, viewership data, trying to decide, do we buy Premier League or do we buy Bundesliga? What's going to get us more subscribers? So it's quite a fun experience to then going to Facebook, which is a tech company. Most people at Facebook didn't even know that we had a sports team. So I went from kind of a total sports environment to now being such a small part of such a large organization where sports was just a by thought almost. And the role was very different. So there was no content strategy. It was more around trying to figure out how to get broadcasters to post more and better content across the platforms, so we could help them ultimately drive more viewership and make more revenue, partner with them in those type of ways. So it was totally different, a totally different job effectively. And I was really nervous when I was getting into it, for sure, because I was so in my comfort zone at being sports. And also at Facebook, it's almost like being at AIS. I felt when I entered, everyone was so smart, and people just knew what they were doing, and you were working with engineers that were building algorithms. And then here I was coming from the broadcast world, so there was a lot of imposter syndrome as well when I joined. But I think over time, those are the kind of situations that you should look for as you're building your career. Where are you going to learn? Where are you going to develop? And a lot of times it is those scary moments that help you grow.
Yeah, that's the kind of situations we prefer to put our student athletes in, because I've always felt like you learn best when you are put in a situation where you're out of your comfort zone, because you have to adjust, you have to think on your feet, and you have to be able to be flexible in order to move ahead. So that sounds to me like that's something you've been able to do in your career, and getting into those situations where you've got to sell yourself, right? And you got to sell your ideas to these folks to get them across. But maybe the sports background helped you push through that.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I would for sure agree with that, because I think my most emotionally challenging and I would say emotionally challenging, but also situations where I've grown the most have been in tournaments, having to deal with emotions like disappointment, anxiety, stress, overexcitement, and trying to calm myself down to stay focused, focusing on the bigger picture, trusting myself and my skills, and trusting my coaches, and trusting the practice that I've been doing. It's so easy to let external environments come in and affect your performance on a specific day or over a specific season. So going internally and finding that trust and connection with yourself, and making sure you're focused on the end goal, which is to achieve a certain result or to perform in a certain way, have been skills that really I've taken throughout all my throughout my whole career. And one of the things that has probably benefited me the most within my career is grit and determination. It's not always the smartest person that will get the job. I hate to say this, of course grades matter, and you need to make sure you're doing your homework and you're studying, and you can practice what you preach, and you talk the walk, or you walk the talk. Yeah. I'm totally messing that up right now. But essentially you need to make sure you're selling yourself in the right way. But at the end of the day, it's so much about personality and drive and attitude, and not being afraid to go and present in front of 20 people that you don't know, or trying to speak on a topic that you're not necessarily 100% comfortable with, but you just have to bite the bullet and get in front of that audience and take a deep breath and trust in your practice. And it's a lot of the similar emotions that you feel when you're competing. And so a lot of the emotions that I did then experience throughout my career were very familiar to me, and I had some coping mechanisms that I learned, throughout high school that I could go back to and almost have as my toolbox, essentially, to kind of get me through those challenging times.
That's really great to hear, because in our, let's say, high level schools, we often hear from parents and kids like, okay, we're in 12th grade now, we need to really focus on schools, we're not going to play any sports, we're going to sit maybe this year out or this season. But from what you said, it's those times that really add to the resume, emotional resume, maybe internal resume, that then help you years down the road, right?
For sure. I think especially females, there's been so much studies that have been done around the impact sport has on younger women and women throughout their lives. It helps them with self-confidence, self-esteem. Most of females in director or C-level positions at Fortune 500 companies have played competitive sport at a college level. I think it was 2/3,
Wow.
if not higher than that. So there is science now, essentially, and data that proves that competing in sports and doing sports on a regular basis really helps you with emotional intelligence, grit, resilience, which are traits that you need, in any boardroom or conference room. And I've definitely come across that as well.
It's such a great story to hear. This is awesome stuff, and I just feel bad that our kids aren't getting those opportunities right now, because we've been in the pandemic and we haven't had our regular tournaments. But for sure, we look forward to getting back to that when we can, because these kids need these lessons, and I can't wait for our kids to hear this podcast, because I'm going to make them listen to it. The message you're getting across is, this is what they need to know. This is what they need to hear. Like, yeah, you do need to. This is what sports teaches you. Yes, school is hard, but the other half of the education of your school life experience and being involved in sports and activities is just as important. And you're going to draw on that just as much as you do your academic side.
Right. Yeah. And I think even to add on to that, there are some great careers that center around sports, and just playing, even not a high level in high school, that helps you maybe get a different job or prepare for that job. And I think too many of our parents don't think that sports is a viable career, and
oh, definitely. I had that as well, in high school, when I was to do your UCAS, at least people applying in England will relate to what I'm saying, where you pick your universities and you pick your subject matter. And I remember also having that same conversation with my parents, who challenged me on sports management as a degree, because you just don't know about the careers that are out there. And of course, they wanted me to do well, so they pushed me. Actually, I applied for a lot of business management schools, and in the end, the one school that I got into that offered sports, which was Loughborough University. And I actually really want to thank Andy Harrison, who's not here, but he played such a big role in my high school development, and helping me choose Loughborough, helping me write my personal statement, and really supporting me and giving me confidence in my decision to pursue sports as a course. That in the end, it really, really paid off. And I think one of the things is, no matter what you decide to study, it has to feel right. You have to be passionate about it. And sports teaches you that passion. You'll know immediately when you do something and it gives you energy and you're excited to do it, it's not draining. That's what you go and pursue, because one of the things I experienced when I went on to university to study sports management is I was so eager to prove to my parents that there was jobs out there that I went and researched, and my mind was set on going to the NBA, and I researched internships at the NBA, and I made myself a LinkedIn account, and I was working on my resume because I knew that it was in my control and I could get there. And I just had to really take it one step at a time and sharpening my skills, sharpening my CV. It's like, if you're using a sporting analogy, you're not going to become a top scorer overnight. You break it down into different elements. Like, how do I become a better runner? How do I become a better defender? How do I work on my shot? How do I, make sure my techniques are accurate? How will I perform under pressure? So really segmenting it into those individual elements. I applied that to when I was looking for jobs. What do I need to do to get into this company or this industry? What are the qualities that I need to have, and how do I make sure I build my resume so it reflects that? So yeah, I'm starting to ramble now.
It's good. It's a good ramble. It's a good ramble.
Yeah.
But I do want to go back and ask you, because you mentioned about women in sports and how important it is. And I wanted to ask you about maybe a little passion project of yours, the WBR. Can you tell us what that is and maybe why you started it?
Yeah, for sure. So driving gender equality in sports has been a huge passion of mine. There's not that many women in sports business, and that's something I learned very early on in my career, that it's just not an equal level playing field in terms of opportunities, and there weren't that many women also studying sports at my university. So it's just like a sad fact about our industry. But it doesn't necessarily reflect the number of women and girls that participate in sport and that are passionate about it. So there's definitely a disconnect somewhere. At some point, these girls or young women decide to give up sports altogether. And that's exactly the area that I wanted to tackle, but less from a participation perspective, more from a business perspective. And so we launched WBR Network. I started it with two friends. Initially, it was going to be a blog where I was just going to write about my experiences and working in sports to really challenge stereotypes of what it means to be a woman in the world of sports. For example, I'm not really a fan of any football clubs. I'm not a diehard NBA fan. I don't have jerseys and I don't know all the players' names. I love going to sporting events and I love playing sports. So there's such a misconception that you have to be an expert on sports to work in the industry, which isn't the case at all. So there's a lot of stereotypes like that we wanted to challenge to encourage more women to get into the industry. So what we started to do is just create content similar to what you guys are doing. We didn't do podcasts, but we did videos. So we interviewed a lot of female execs working in sports, from NBA to Wimbledon to DAZN to Nike. So various women working in the industry, asking them about their career journeys, any advice they had, what their day-to-day looks like, to hopefully inspire more women and younger women to want to get into the industry.
Cool. Very cool. And where can, I'll put the links below, but it's Women Breaking Records, right? Is WBR?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, WBR stands for Women Breaking Records. And it was all around, like, breaking a record doesn't have to mean getting a gold medal or getting a personal best, but it's about pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and challenging yourself. And we were hoping that by the stories that we're sharing on our Instagram accounts, but also across our website, that we're able to encourage not just women, but everyone to go outside of their comfort zone.
That's actually one of my questions. Your target audience, is it, it's obviously women, but is it younger girls as well, like maybe youth, or is it kids coming up through college age, or anybody who's
it's really It's anyone. So we try to make the content as engaging as possible. Our main target audience is probably younger women, like 15 to 23, when they're deciding what they want to study and where they want to go. But we try to edit and create the content in such a way that makes it more engaging for everyone, so that anyone that wants to learn about sports or a specific career will be interested and engaged. So we try to be as inclusive as we could in our content production.
Is there anybody else out there like you guys with this network, or is it a growing network?
So there's a number of different, I would say, production companies dedicated to different elements of women's sport. There's one that's focusing specifically on women's football and storytelling around women's football. There's one around sneakerhood and basketball, but our niche, quote unquote, is women working in sports. Okay. And one of the things that we started doing more recently is interviewing just our friends that do sports as part of a healthy lifestyle to encourage more sport participation. So we have one pillar of content that's around female execs and interviewing female execs about their jobs. Now we're kind of moving into the space of how do people push themselves and break records in their everyday lives through doing sports and staying active. For example, I interviewed my mother-in-law as well, who does like 50,000 steps a day. And we had quite a fun interview with her, that for her, that means breaking a record, and walking hours and hours on end is her form of pushing herself and exercising. But we had someone else who was a hiker and a skateboarder. So we're just trying to be as diverse as we can with our storytelling.
I really like it because it's a lot of the content that you see, not just female, but male. It's about that like top 1%, the elite athlete that, you know, the normal person can never, you know, match or get there, right? But there's so many other jobs and so many other great ways to be active. It's really good.
Exactly.
So you think we want 50,000 steps a day, Nick? Is that something you're going to go for?
Well, our school has lots of stairs, right? So, you know, going up and down in our building, you can get a lot of work done, for sure. We want to talk a little bit about AIS and your, let's say, high school career. But before we do that, we kind of want to talk about and congratulate you on the your latest achievement, I would say, the Forbes 30 under 30 list for sports and gaming in Europe, right?
Yeah, so, thank you. Cool. Thank you so much. It was very surreal.
How did that come? Like, was that just a surprise? Like, you know, you get a phone call and you pick it up, or did you have to, you know, audition for it? Tell us a little bit about the award itself.
Yes. So it was a couple weeks ago, someone reached out to me from Forbes saying I've been nominated for this list, and inviting me to how do you say, nominate myself? Not nominate, but to fill in this like a bit about me and
accept the nomination. Yeah.
Accept the nomination. So yeah, I went and I wrote a bit about my bio, and I spoke about my job at Facebook, WBR Network. There's another NGO that I founded that I didn't speak about. It's called Sports Equity International, where it's much more business focused, but we're looking at sport for development. And one of the things we're doing now is a women's leadership program across COSAFA, which is a football council in Southern Africa, to develop more female leaders in football in Southern Africa. So I just spoke a lot about my passion projects as well as my job at Facebook. And then a couple days later, or a week later, I get an email saying, congrats, you made it, here's a link. So it was all really overwhelming because I thought I would get like a pre-brief before it would go live on the website. So I just clicked on it and I saw that I was on the website already. And yeah, it's just, it's amazing. And I feel so humbled. I still don't know how I made it and why I made it. Part of me still thinks, gosh, they must have made a mistake, but I'm just really happy about it.
Now, I think anyone that listens to the last 20 minutes knows why you made it on the list. So yeah, don't worry about that.
That's right. That's
Thank
amazing.
No,
you.
that's great, and that's thanks to our great alumni director at AIS Vienna, because she puts out updates all the time, and I know we've stayed in contact, and you always come and visit. But she sent out this update, and boom, you're on the top of the list. And I said, wow, I gotta write.
I didn't actually see that email.
Yeah.
I need to check that out.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Top of the alumni news for sure.
Oh my God. Who
So
would have thought? I made
what would
it.
it change, or does it change anything for you? Do you think open more doors, highlight your NGO? What do you think will come from this?
Yeah, hopefully. I think I love working at Facebook. I can see myself being here for a long time. I love the commercial and the business side of things, the negotiations. That's where I can really be competitive as well and channel my competitive nature. But on the side, I definitely want to continue doing a lot of this work, really, especially around gender equality, sustainability. There's so many beautiful things about sports and participation, broadcast, and it brings people together like nothing else does. But there's also a lot that can be fixed, to make it more transparent, fair, equitable, especially when we're talking about sport governance on a global basis. So I think I definitely want to just continue doing both. And now that I have a baby coming in 2 months, it's just another reason for me to try to build a better world for him when he arrives. And I'm excited for this challenge to see, how being a mother is going to shape me as a person, and how it's going to add more to my life that will affect, and no doubt will affect the way that I approach my job and the kind of legacy I want to leave behind.
It will. I can't. Output on my job changed tremendously, especially when the kids started coming to school with me. Oh man!
Wow.
Well, maybe speaking about your school experience, part of what we like having, part of the reason we like having the alumni come back, or folks who come through international schools as student athletes, is to share their experience at that time. So maybe you could talk a little bit about, your days at AIS Vienna. How did you balance your athletics and academics to help you create your success in an international school setting? So maybe you could share a little bit with us about that experience as a student and coming through.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, it was just always a no-brainer. I always played sports in elementary school. I was always at lunchtime playing soccer or running around playing tag. And then that just kind of continued throughout my high school life. And being part of a team, especially basketball in middle school, and then the varsity basketball team in high school has shaped me in so many ways, from the friendships that I made with my teammates to the relationships I've built with my coaches. I genuinely looked up to my coaches, and I saw them, as like friends / parents / mentors. And I think that gave me a good outlet outside of the busy academic curriculum. And so for me, it was just easy to make time for it. And yeah, of course, there's sacrifices, especially as you move through high school, there's more distractions. You start meeting up with friends after school, and you play a lot, and you train on weekends. And in some cases, my friends, my closest group of friends weren't in any sports. I was always the only one that was in a team from my group of girlfriends. So they met up on weekends and I couldn't join. Or I remember there was these epic trips that I couldn't go to because I had ISST. But for me, it just was an easy sacrifice to make. I wouldn't even call it a sacrifice, but for me, it was an easy decision to make because I just really loved the whole camaraderie of being in a team and training together, the jokes that you have with each other, the journey of, trying to become a better player for a specific tournament. That whole experience I really miss a lot. Even today, it's one of the things I'm most nostalgic about is playing in ISST tournaments, SKIS tournaments, traveling with your team, and there's no feeling of competing with your friends and you're down by X many in the end, you guys pull it together and you win, and you get a medal or you get a trophy, and it's just the best feeling in the world. And it really that whole experience has really shaped me in so many ways. So yeah, I think it's probably one of the best experiences of my life. So definitely encourage anyone that has a chance to get into sports to do it, because it just shapes you in such an impact.
That's great. And some of the things you touched on, you talked about Andy and now about your coaches being so great to help you. That's so great in a, smaller school, right? Where you really can connect with people and that. And you mentioned ISST and SKIS. You won a lot of championships, I think, with your basketball teams. Were there any one ISST SKIS tournament memory, one big trip, something that stands out that you'll never forget?
Yeah, and I think if Andy hears this, he'll remember this as well. But there's this team. So in basketball, we were in Division 1 ISST. It was always very, very competitive. And there was this team that just always beat us. It's ASL, American School of London, and they were so aggressive. And there was just something about that team that, I don't know, rubbed me the wrong way. And it was so annoying to lose against them because they were so cocky, and you could tell they came in thinking that they're going to win. And we hosted ISST once at AIS, where, and everyone knows this feeling. All your friends are watching. It's like a Thursday break. The bleachers are full. There's already nerves and anxiety, and here comes ASL playing against us, and they beat us. God, I forgot by how much, but in my head, I think it was like 40 or something. They destroyed us, and it was so embarrassing and so annoying. And it was one of those games that you just want to walk away at halftime, but you can't. You have to just bite your tongue, go back and continue playing and trying to do your best. And we were all just like emotionally destroyed after that. Especially, it was a home game, and it was probably the worst team to lose against. But then the following year, there was ISST in Athens, and we played ASL again. And by that time, we had so much built up, not necessarily anger, but determination and energy that we were to channel towards beating them, that that was probably the game where I put my heart on the court. There's nothing left in the end. There's times where I really thought I couldn't breathe, and then I went and I sprinted back and forth like 10 times, and I have no idea where that energy came from. And we were down. We were down by like 2 or 4 throughout most of the game, but I think in the last 30 seconds, I forgot how, but we scored a basket, we got fouled, made the foul. Then in the last 5 seconds, we scored another basket, and we beat them by like 2. And the looks on their faces, they were just so shocked. And you could tell they underestimated us because they beat us the year before by like 40. And we beat them, and we went through to the semifinals, which for us was huge, especially in Division 1. And a lot of these, I remember there was Athens there as well, and they actually go and recruit female basketball players for their team. So the caliber was really, really high. And just that game of beating ASL in Athens was definitely the most memorable match ever. Even, considering I played in college as well. Like throughout my whole life, that was probably the most memorable match I've ever played.
That's cool.
Awesome.
That's
Another shout out for Andy. Good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
great.
I have one more thing I wanted, because you're talking about basketball, obviously the NBA, and that's your main moment, and it was your main sport, but you played other sports, right? You played volleyball and you did track. Did you ever think about just focusing on basketball? And what did the other sports bring to you? You know?
Yeah, I loved playing sports. So it was, volleyball was very fun, and it always came quite easy to me. It was one of those sports that I just felt like I was naturally good at. So it was something, yeah, I definitely enjoyed it, and I put 100% of energy into it, but I always saw it as a warm up to basketball season starting. Yeah. And then I did track because I wanted to do something in the spring, and again, I was just randomly good at shot put, and at the 100 meters, and I actually saw that our 4x100 meter record was broken a couple years ago, which was quite heartbreaking. But my shot put one is still stands. So yeah, it was always fun to have something to look forward to at the end of a school day, you know, especially if you're studying for exams and you're so drained by the time it's 3 o'clock. You're like, gosh, I can't keep my eyes open anymore. And then you go and you play sports and you suddenly feel so energized. And it just helps you be in the moment and not worry about, you know, what's happening with your friends or what's happening in that class. And for those 2 hours, you can just be at training or be in the game and really just switch off from all the other problems that you're dealing with. So it was also quite therapeutic for me now looking back. So I'm very happy I did that.
Great.
Well, Anna, this has been a great chance to meet you today and hear your story, and you know, not just the business part of your life and your career, which has been outstanding, and the awards for being on the Forbes 30 list. So I get, and of course your amazing sports experience coming up through AIS Vienna. So any final thoughts or maybe some advice you'd give to current students looking back on your career and your experiences? So kids who are coming up through now, who might even pursue a career in sports?
Yeah, I would definitely say one of the things that helped me the most is just applying that determination that you get in sports to your career, and just being super intentional about, you know, where do you want to go, and truly believing that you can get there. I never thought that I would get an internship at the NBA. It just seemed impossible. I didn't know anyone that worked there. It was in the US. I'm not American. I don't have any connections that I can call. So I really had to get there by myself and figure out how to do so. So, and it's possible, you know, by baby steps, you can get anywhere. So to the students that are deciding or are intimidated or worrying about where they want to go, just, you know, set yourself that goal, try to break down the steps that you need to achieve in order to get there. What step 1 look like, what does step 2 look like, and then before you know it, you're gonna get to where you want to be. So that probably is what helped me the most, and if I could pass something on, it would be that.
That's awesome. That's
awesome. Good stuff.
Well,
great stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. Thanks for that. It's gone by super fast, and
yeah,
and way better. You know, I've learned so much more about you now than when you come and visit. So I'm glad we had like a focused conversation about your
yeah, for sure.
career, but I'm looking forward to having the relaxed conversation when you make it back to Vienna with your son. So
yeah, definitely next time in person, and with a little baby who's going to be crying and distracting us.
That's okay. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very good.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks again. Like I said, I'm gonna make our kids listen to this. The stories you shared there are so inspirational, and it's true. It's true that kids can do it. They can put their minds to a focus and try, do their best, and look what they can achieve, just like you've done. So thanks again for being a great role model, and sharing that story today. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, guys. That was so good. Really appreciated it.
Coach Evaluator is the premier coach evaluation software for schools and athletic organizations and preferred coach evaluation solution of the NIAAA and the Positive Coaching Alliance. The system is completely customizable with an always growing evaluation template library for athletic directors to reference. There are not only evaluations for ADs to use, but also self-evaluations and parent-player evaluations of coaches. Learn more about digitizing and simplifying your coach evaluation process by visiting www.coachevaluator.com. Mention Globetrottin ADs to receive a $200 discount on the yearly rate.
Kukri are a global multi-sport clothing brand specializing in providing the world's most prestigious schools with bespoke made and designed team uniforms for students of all standards and abilities. If you are frustrated by inconsistent colors, branding, costs, and sizing across your school's uniforms, then it's time to discuss an offering where every sport is available from softball to soccer for male and female athletes at rates to suit your budget. To find out how Kukri could elevate the apparel of your student athletes to a professional level, email the team at contact@kukrisports.com. A dedicated sales manager will offer you a quote today. Mention this ad and receive a special offer on your coach or PE staff order.
Until next week, this has been another episode of the Globetrottin ADs.